All right, guys, welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today we're breaking down the Friday, September 10th slate that kicks off Week 2. It's nothing flashy, nothing too intense for the casual football fan, but if you're really a CFB junkie, then you'll be up to the challenge to watch this. It should be a little fun. 4-game slate. Just kicking things off at 7:30 Eastern Time on ESPN2. Coastal Carolina and Kansas. 27-point favorites is the chance clears. They both played FCS schools last week. CCU had no problems, 52-14 win over the Citadel. Kansas, they held off South Dakota 17-14. It's the first win in nearly 700 days. The fans stormed the field. How excited they were to get that win there in Lance Leopold's first game. So looking at the Kansas offense, Jason Bean, the North Texas transfer, this guy's a quarterback though. He's a good arm, very athletic, some really respectable mobility. Ran for a team high 51 yards in that win over South Dakota. Looked solid, 17-26, 163 yards, 2 scores, took care of the football. Bean's a good player. Last year in North Texas, it's a bit of a new-look offense for him, though. Last year was a high-flying, air raid attack. This year it's not so much. He also doesn't have Jalen Darden, like at North Texas. They have some good receivers like Kwame Lassiter. He only had 2 grabs in the season opener. They need to get more involved. He's probably their best pass catcher. And Trevor Wilson, he was really good at Buffalo a season ago, followed Leopold over here. He was one of their top go-to guys. I think those 2 guys, they could be pretty serviceable throughout the year. I think this passing attack can certainly show some nice growth that you haven't seen at Kansas over the last couple of years, other than Les Miles' first year after that. Other than that, it's not been great at the quarterback position for Kansas. I think with Jason Bean, I think it can be pretty serviceable, pretty moderate this year. They're going to have to run the ball better. Velton Gardner, 19 carries for 21 yards. The O-line only gave up 1 sack, as Bean did, a tons of evading. But North Dakota was frequently in the backfield. They were, again, 19 for 21 is not very good. Their rushing offense is a concern. It's not going to be any easier here against Coastal Carolina when we get to their defense. We'll discuss that. Looking at the Coastal Carolina offense, though, a small offensive line, but there's no real advantage for Kansas. I think penetration is going to be a concern for them. I feel like the spread option is really going to hurt Kansas. Shamari Jones, Reese White, too much speed for these KU linebackers. They were out of position frequently last week. They allowed 165 yards on the ground, 2 long rushing touchdowns, allowed only 45% completion rate. Then 100 less, and under 100 passing yards. There's a new starter for South Dakota though on a passing attack. It's not exactly strong by any means. Eddie Wilson at 315, again falling a smaller line. He could have a bit of an advantage there. I don't think he will though. A veteranized offensive line, 115 starts I think between all those guys. The Jayhawks recorded 1 sack last week. Kyron Johnson, he's a player to watch for the Jayhawks. Made a lot of plays last week. He could probably be their best guy in the front 7 for them. But again, the linebackers there are frequently out of position. I wasn't impressed with the speed. I think this spread option is just going to dominate them all game long. I think it's going to allow those the entire defense really to creep up, and Javon Hiley, Isaiah Likely. I think they're going to just feel like they're going to be able to. The run's going to dominate the night. But those guys should be able to get freed up downfield. Safety Kenny Logan, I think he's a good player, but all around there's not enough playmakers in the back end for Kansas to compete here. And then, looking at C.J. Brewer and Jeffrey Gunter, they should control the line of scrimmage all game long for Coastal Carolina. You should see a blowout here. Chance of clears 48-14. Moving to North Carolina A&T and Duke. The A&T Aggies lost to Furman last week, and then Duke, they lost their 5th game in a row dating back to last year as they played probably it was one of my favorite games of the week against Charlotte. Very resilient effort, but they did fall on the shorter end of the stick. The Aggies did not play in 2021. They were a really good team in 2019, and Duke beat them handily, 45-13, showcasing the talent and separation. Likely going to see the same here. Jamon Martin on offense for North Carolina A&T, 1,500 yards, 23 scores in that 2019 season. He's a very impressive runner. These guys have always had pretty stout running backs all the way back to Tariq Cohen a number of years ago. But he's not the only one, Jamon Martin. This guy's really good. They couldn't run the ball at all last week, though. 31 carries for 73 yards, or 77 yards it is, 2.3 yards per carry. The Furman defensive front was consistently in the backfield. Always, play after play, they were pushing this offensive line back. It wasn't any easier. John Fowler at quarterback completed 48% of his balls for 1 score, 2 picks. He had 268. He was able to hook up a run hunt for a couple of big plays. He finished the night with 146 yards and 2 touchdowns on just 5 grabs. But again, their offensive line was consistently pushed back. That's not going to serve well against defensive ends R.J. Obin, Ben Fry. So Duke's always been pretty solid up front. I kind of like the group they have here. both 255-pounders. I think will have some good stops up front. If Furman can push him back, then Duke's certainly going to be able to. So it's ACC talent. I think Mateo Durant's going to have a big day. Yes, as he did against Duke. He finished the week as one of the top leading rushers. 255 yards, I believe, 2 scores in that game in Charlotte. Very, very impressive. Because North Carolina A&T, they didn't show great closing speed on outside runs last week. I think that's going to be a big advantage for Durant. These guys, I mean, he's always been a really good runner. The speed of Duke is it's much more amplified than it was against Furman. And another thing I noticed about the Aggies, their off coverage really hurt them in their receiving game. They put a lot of off coverage and it absolutely shredded them. So I think Jake Bobo and Jalen Callan, they should be able to make some nice plays after the catch. They've never been really known as after the catch gurus or anything like that, but I think this game's going to open up the opportunity for them to make some plays. Gunnar Holmberg, he was actually pretty solid last week. Protected the ball, made some good plays when they needed him to. He kept them in that game for sure. All around, though, I think, even though Charlotte torched them last week through the passing game, we're not going to see the same thing here from North Carolina A&T. I think Duke's going to straighten things up in the back end, and I think they're going to route this one 35-10. They should win this one pretty handily over North Carolina A&T. Not as such of a program at all, though. Pretty good things going on over there, too. North Dakota and Utah State. Utah State fresh off a win over Washington State. Very impressive performance. The game not many people anticipated them to be able to compete in. They went on the road and won it on the Palouse. North Dakota, they can kind of score. They had 30 game last year, 35 in the opener. Tommy Schuster is an efficient passer, completes a good percentage, takes care of the ball, but they don't ask him to do too much. They don't really have a deep passing attack at the same time. So the efficiency is great. He's really just a game manager at this point. Running back Otis Wee, he's a good runner, 5'9", 215. But he's playing a Utah State defensive front. He was very active last week. Jalen Bannerman, Patrick Joyner. These guys got after Washington State frequently. This defensive line, I think they have a great matchup here against North Dakota. North Dakota had a moderate run defeat a season ago. So they're not no slouch in the trenches, but this is a very good offensive line for the Aggies. Running back Kelvin Tyler should have a pretty big game. Logan Bonner, he should get the start at quarterback. Looking to see some more effectiveness from this passing game. Him and Peasley went back and forth last week. Or they both saw action, rather. Bonner, I think he should probably get the start. Peasley's the more athletic of the bunch, but Bonner is clearly a better all-around quarterback as a passer. Devon Tompkins, him and Bonner could be a good connection this season, so I'd like to see him get at least 80 to 90% of the reps in this ball game. Nice little tune-up before they jump into conference play. I think this is going to be another rout. 38-14, I have Utah State coming out on top. And the final game of the night, 9:30 p.m. on FS1. Boise State hosts UTEP. I'm really looking forward to this one. I think this might slide under the radar. We'll go ahead and jump into the breakdown. Maybe you'll feel the same way. UTEP, they've been so bad on offense for many years plus. Having 30 points in back-to-back games. The quality opponent wasn't great. New Mexico State, Bethune-Cookman, but that's very encouraging. That's something you see them at all. I know a couple years back they scored 11 points a game, and it's always 20 points per game year after year under that mark. So it's a very encouraging start to the season. They've also had 200-plus rushing in back-to-back. Talked about last week how I felt Boise would struggle against the run, and of course, Bruiser tore them apart. The offensive lines, though, they're not really comparable. I like UTEP's pass protection. They're pretty solid. Darda Lee at 335. He's probably their best lineman at left tackle. But I think they're going to get a reality check on the ground. Quadrez Wadley, he could have some success at 225, but I like a resurgent BSU defense to seal things up inside the trenches. So that means the game would likely be on the arm of Gavin Hardison. He had 5 scores in 7 games last year, has 4 in 2 games so far. So they're obviously progressing just a little bit. Good pass catchers, so Jacob Cowling and Justin Garrett. It's one of the most underrated duos in all of college football. Those guys were really productive last year, and they're already off to a good start this season. Improvement was imminent, though, getting those guys back and Hardison for another year. I wasn't a fan of the Boise State secondary last year. They had issues last week, too, in all areas. They only had almost 600 yards. As I noted, they got beat up on the ground. Dylan Gabriel also had 300-plus and 4 scores. So this could be a matchup that UTEP could really take advantage of here against this Boise State secondary. Looking to the Broncos offense, they started hot, but they were still one-dimensional. They had 24 points in the first half. Bogmeyer was looking really good. Then they went cold to the second half. Their only score came off of they capitalized off a turnover. It was only a 30-play drive, or a 30-yard drive, that is, and they were able to capitalize off a UCF mistake. They were pretty cold, though. 26 carries for 20 yards on the ground. Still can't run the ball. It's unclear if George Maloney will play. He was a late scratch last minute. Not really sure why. He was not on the COVID list, though. Boise did confirm that, but they didn't disclose why he was out. So he might play in this game. They certainly need some help with their backfield. Van Burden has not been able to do a lot. And UTEP's Keenan Stewart and Praise Amaluchwali. Their varsity defense took big steps last year. They look solid so far. Again, small sample size against low-quality opponents. But those two on the defensive front, they've been good playmakers this year. So, and if Boise State's one-dimensional, it's going to allow these guys to get through the line and maybe make life hard for Hank Bachmar. The thing about UTEP, though, is they haven't had more than 6 INTs in a year since 2014. Their secondary lacks playmakers, as it always has. I think they're going to have issues in containing Khalil Shakur. That should also free up Stephon Cobbs, Octavius Evans. Bethune-Cookman, they had good success last week versus the Pass. Bethune-Cookman had good success last week against UTEP's pass defense. I think Bachmar and those guys should be in for a good day. Interested to see if they can find some space running the ball, though. But 26.5-point favorites, I'm not really feeling it. It's hard to get a read on UTEP, of course, just from 2 games. So I could be completely wrong in picking them to cover with ease. But I think this matchup kind of really favors UTEP, at least what I've seen from them so far. You can only read what they give you. So the 2 teams they played, low quality, I'll admit, but certainly different from what I've seen from them from the past. They got guys making plays and all assets of the game, really. So they gave up 7 yards of play last week, though. I feel like they can cover in this game. I'm going to pick Boise to win at home, 38-20. I think UTEP, though, I think this is a good matchup. Very interested in watching this game and seeing if UTEP are actually they're legit in terms of progress, or it's just a fluke based on their opponents. So that's going to wrap this game up. Nice little 4-game slate on this Friday night to start week 2. But make sure you guys leave a like, comment, subscribe, and leave your predictions for the games this weekend.